good people, it's KDP here, aka KDP, aka the Graphite Specialist, back at again with another video. And today, I was planning on making a short review of these games now that they've been out for a week, but honestly, I don't think there's much need. All over the internet, it seems like there's two camps concerning Scarlet and Violet. Either it's a buggy, glitchy mess, or it is a godsend from Arceus themselves. And while I would say I actually do fall into one of these two camps, for now at the very least, we are going to keep it neutral, as I go over 5 pros and 5 cons I've experienced while playing these games over their first week. Just a heads up, this is going to be relatively spoiler free, but over the next few weeks I am going to start talking about spoiler topics concerning this game, so do with that information as you will. I hope you stick with me. And just to get it out of the way, yes, there have been frame rate issues that do a lot to take you out of the immersion. Textures pop constantly, and at least in my case, the game has crashed on more than one occasion. Now, these are things that you have seen other people talk to death about at this point, so I'm not going to sit here and repeat them to you. In fact, I'd like to think that the topics I'm going to bring up surrounding these games are points that are a bit less talked about thus far in the game's discussion. But if I didn't bring up the frame rate now, I wouldn't hear the end of it in the comments, so there you go, it has been spoken on. Okay, so without wasting any more time, pro number 1. These games have arguably the best story in a Pokemon game so far. I could still see PLA and Black and White being brought up as contenders for this point, but honestly, these stories, though on the surface they seemed a bit shallow, they culminate into some of the coolest final hours of gameplay I've experienced in Pokemon. With for me, only the Volo fight topping how grandiose it felt. I was the second person to complete these games in the circle of people I was playing alongside with, and the way I described it to Haywire before I got to the end of the game was that it felt like the most edgy, over-the-top Pokemon ROM hack story you've ever experienced, but somehow only in the best ways. And it somehow managed to never feel too over the top or cringy with how it managed certain serious topics. And personally, I think that everyone that has played the games up to that point will agree to that statement, at least somewhat. After that though, and again concerning the story, comes con number 1, the post-game. Or should I say lack thereof. Granted, I haven't fully finished it myself, but what I've heard from others is that once you, and I am going to spoil something here, so look away, I'll tell you when it's safe to turn back around. There's not really anything that happens after the... Okay, it's safe to look now. Obviously, if you've played the game for any length of time at this point, you will have noticed those ominous gates that are scattered across the map. The gameplay concerning those was fun and rewarding, but overall pretty minimal in terms of things to do after the credits roll. Next pro, and it's a pretty specific one for me, shinies. I caught 4 random chance shinies on my first day playing this game, and then another one 2 days later. Funnily enough, my first one was a Lechonk that was literally the first Pokemon I was able to catch after the catching tutorial, and I've no idea what the odds are for that. But sadly and swiftly, that does bring me on to con number 2, and that's the fact that I've supposedly battled 8 shinies in this game? What? Now, I don't know if I've battled any NPC trainers that have had shinies that I've somehow not noticed, or if I sent my Fuecoco out to kill them in Let's Go Mode by accident, but god does that thought make me upset. While I do get that they removed the shiny sound and sparkle from the overworld to like immerse you into the world more, but come on, just because a different coloured squirrel wouldn't sparkle in real life, doesn't mean that it can't sparkle in my video game. So please, Game Freak, if you're listening, just patch it in, I'll forgive you. Now, pro number 3 in my opinion would be the characters. Oh my god, the characters. Their dialogue in and out of battle, the decisions they make in the game, and how emotive they feel during certain scenes makes practically all of the main cast some of my favourite Pokemon characters to date. Standouts for me were definitely Clavel. I really liked, and mild spoiler here, the fighting type Team Star Captain Erily, and Arven's development from start to finish easily makes him one of the realest characters since N in my opinion, no question. Now for con 3, and I'm not meaning to tie these all together, but apparently that's what's happening here, and this would be every character that isn't part of the main cast. Though this gen easily has some of my favourite gym leaders, rivals and foes. For every one of them, there's 100 copy and paste NPCs, walking around cities with practically nothing to say, with only a very small handful having any specific dialogue or traits. I do get why you can't go into every building considering this game's scope, but the fact that no houses can be entered, and other than the school, there's at best a few sandwich shops that you can walk around in, I did really feel like there wasn't as much care to make the locations feel alive as they put into their characters you meet along your journey, and that is a shame. I just realised that all of my pros and cons do actually thematically tie together. We're going to keep up this trend for the rest of the video, but to switch things around slightly and so we can end on a high note, let's jump into con number 4. And to me, that would be a very specific bug I encountered. I know this hasn't happened to everyone, but it happened to me, and it really took me out of a very special moment. I won't show footage, but during the Elite Four and Champion battle, I encountered a glitch where both their themes would just repeat the intro of their songs over and over again without ever getting to the rest of the song. Funnily enough, the repeats almost seemed purposeful because they both lined up purposefully with where the intro ended and began. But this did end up turning one of my favourite and most intense moments in any Pokemon title into a bit of a lackluster experience, as I didn't have the soundtrack that's meant to be there to enhance the feelings that you're supposed to feel. What's even more of a shame is that I've actually gone back and listened to both the Elite Four and Champions theme on YouTube, and I freaking love them. So again, Game Freak, at the time of recording this, there's been no patch to fix this, and I know it's not happened to everyone, but I know for a fact it's not just me either. So please, please, fix this. It's actually not all bad though, as pro number 4 for me is actually the music as a whole, because my god, they popped off with this game. If you like that Primal Dialga and Palkia theme from PLA, I know you will mess with this game's soundtrack. Jesus Christ. Without showing you any gameplay of where it appears in the game, because I do want to keep this relatively spoiler free as I said, I am going to play you 5 seconds of just one of the songs that I fell in love with from this game, because when I tell you, I yelled when this song kicked into gear. Hold up. Anyway, with that, onto my final con of this game. And this one is actually going to be more of a competitive complaint, but it does affect casual gameplay too. Obviously, terrestrialization is a huge part of this game, and it's going to continue to play a huge part in battling for the entire time we use these games to battle in. So with that being said, and very slight spoiler here, you can change your Pokemon's Terra type, which is great, but the math's been done, and considering the only way you can actually do this, for now at least, you'll need Terra Shards to change Pokemon's Terra type, 50 to be exact. And to get 50 Terra Shards, you'll need to do a hell of a lot of Terra raids of that specific type. Since you only get 1 to 3 shards per raid, you'll need to grind raids for roughly 8 hours before you can change a single Pokemon's type. And that's without considering variables like actually finding the right raids. For example, I've got a Grafire that I used during my playthrough of the games, because obviously, I want my Grafire to be Terra Poison so it gets increased damage on its Poison type moves. Today, I went onto the game and I was able to find 2 Terra Poison raids on the whole map, meaning that that's all I can reliably get for the rest of the day without having to constantly refresh the random raids board and praying that I'm even able to join one in the first place. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've been having trouble with that. So long story short, they need to add a better way to do this in the DLC. But my final pro, at least for now, is purely competitive. This might seem like a weird note to end it on, but at least for me, I've been getting into competitive battling recently. So this change was a huge help. The amount of EV changing items you'll find on the ground just while playing a casual playthrough of this game is absolutely insane. Not to mention that, minus Terra Shards, you can actually buy almost every single competitive item you'll ever need to train up a Pokemon just from one of those Delibird corner shops you'll find down any street in the game. And the big one for me is the fact that you no longer have to train a Pokemon up to level 100 to hyper train its stats with bottle caps. Unlike prior games, this has been reduced to level 50, which makes so much more sense considering all Pokemon end up being scaled in an online battle anyway, which means those 50 extra levels of XP you use just to get them hyper trained go practically wasted. But with that, those were my personal top 5 pros and cons of Scarlet and Violet so far. So what do I think? Which pitchfork toting camp am I on with these games? Honestly, I adore them. And I think I can say, regardless of if this is recency bias or not, that these are my favourite mainline Pokemon titles of all time. And if you don't agree with that, that's totally fine. In fact, that's actively a good thing, because these games clearly do have some issues that need to be worked out. Personally, I think I can overlook the bad a little bit more, because all the problems that I have with these games, like the frame rate, musical glitches, crashing, etc., that can all and most likely will be patched in time. But the things like the story, the characters, after the game drops, those can't be changed. And they're without a doubt what had the biggest impact to me while playing Scarlet and Violet. But what do you guys think? Be civil, but do let me know in the comments down below. Or join the Discord and talk to me in there, because warning Discord people, I am going to be raising the spoiler watershed over there in the next few days. So if you don't want to be spoiled, just keep a watch out. I've got some really big theories and videos in the works that are going to be coming out very, very soon. And I can't wait for you guys to see them. But with all that being said, people, I've been KDP, you've been my audience, this is my outro, and I'll see you in the next video, stream, or whatever I make. Goodbye, people. Bye!
You know that I won't let you down before